Howdy everyone. All right, as you can see, I've got the rudder pedals now in place. I'm just going to kind of recap some stuff that I've done. So as I said, just keep in mind that as you go forward on the fuselage, the front end gets more narrow. So like I said, I decided to have my rudder pedals aft, the aftmost adjustable position that I had set up originally when I had fitted the pedals. So with them more aft, the width of the fuselage opens, and there was side-to-side play on both of the rudder pedal tubes. So to alleviate that, I had put those washers, as I had explained in a different video, I put washers inside the blocks, and now there is absolutely no play left and right on either tube. The other thing that I had done was when I had originally done the fit up, I had marked the block here, this block that gets split. I had marked which half attaches to the bracket and the orientation, if it goes this way or this way. And then I marked the orientation on the bottom block to match with the top block. You can see that here with just some Sharpie marker. I put some lines just so I get the bottom mated to the top. When I had originally done the fit up in the fuselage months ago, before I disassembled this block, I just marked it so that I knew I can get it exactly, I can put it back exactly the way that it was when I did the original fit up. So if you do that, make sure you get your markings correct, you get the block orientation correct, and you get the proper half against the bracket. The other thing is, don't forget, there's a spacer between the two. There's a washer between each half, because obviously when you split the block in half, the kerf of your cutting blade is now material that is gone from the block. So to make that up, you put washers in here just so it doesn't clamp tightly on these brackets or on these tubes. So that is all done. I've got my brake reservoir now in place. You can see I've got the hole in the firewall sealed with some fire stop. I wrestle with that a little bit. If nothing else, I like to seal it just to keep engine fumes and potential heat and potential cold from getting through that hole or the space around the hole, or any penetration on the firewall for that matter. But in a fire, this is aluminum. This is what was given to us through Vans. When you order your fuselage kit, this is what they give you. It's aluminum. That's going to burn. Once it burns, that hole's going to be wide open. At that point, I guess you got bigger issues. Same with the cabin heat valve, if you will. Same thing. This is from Vans. This is all aluminum. You know, and it's thin. That's probably going to melt relatively quick in a fire. But as I said, you probably got bigger problems at that point than some aluminum melting. Got my fittings here. Again, these holes on the firewall are pre-punched. It's just a matter of making the reinforcement plate, which I'll show you in a minute, to match this, and then putting the fittings in. You can see the reinforcement plate there. That's made from scratch. The lines are provided in the kit. And of course the master cylinders and everything else are part of the kit. So, and this is the penetration from the Vans supplied brake booster or the brake reservoir. These fittings are also included. And you can see the fire stop, the red fire stop there. And then of course I've got thread sealant, the appropriate thread sealant on the fitting that screws into the threaded female reservoir. This is a swivel fitting, so this allows you a little bit of flex, which is kind of nice. And then you can see, of course I don't have my rudder cables attached, but you can see I've got plenty of travel on both pedals. So the next thing that I plan to do, I have copper conical seals that I like to use. Can't get my hand in here. On these fittings, these AN fittings here, where the hose is attached to the actual fitting, the blue fitting, I have conical seals that I want to put in there just like I do everywhere else. I don't have them at the moment, so these fittings are not tight, and I just have a piece of tape. It's just a reminder to let me remember that I need to put those conical seals in there. So since I don't have the seals on, and I know these lines are going to have to come back off to put those seals in place, I haven't tidied up anything on here. Now what I don't want to do, I don't want to start tying things together, because when the pedals move through their range of motion, I don't want these things rubbing against each other. So I want to keep them separate. Of course, I want to keep them out of the way of my feet, but I don't want them rubbing on each other, things of that nature. So once I get the seals in place and I get these hoses actually tightened, I'm going to figure out what, if anything, I can kind of gather up and where I can gather it, just to make it a little bit nicer. You notice that all four of these fittings are off at an angle. This is off at an angle. This is off at an angle. That's just so the hoses will clear each other nicely. This is angled so the hose will clear this fitting, and this is angled so that the nut doesn't interfere with the hose, and I can also get a wrench in here. So that's why the fittings are slightly offset. Just makes a little maintenance down the road potentially easier. And then again, like I said, there's no play anywhere, but you can see, if I can get my hands around here in the camera, you can see that they're relatively free to move. Of course, they're a little stiff with the hoses attached to them, but they're not binding. So that's that. There's the rudder cable is here, and that will get attached to this here. That's another thing. Make sure you have all your holes pre-drilled before you put the assembly in the airplane, because if you had to come back in here after the fact and open up a hole somewhere in here, that could be a little tedious. So make sure you got all your holes drilled to size before you install your rudder pedal assemblies. In the instructions, between the end of the cable, which is right here, between the end of the cable and this fitting, you're supposed to make a strap. Of course, that length of that strap to connect the cable to the pedal, that's going to vary depending on where you have your pedals bolted into the fuselage. So I have not made those straps, and I am not going to make those straps until I'm able to have my seats in, the instrument panel. I can climb in the airplane, position my seat in relation to the instrument panel so that that is comfortable, the stick is comfortable, and then I can adjust the pedals to my feet, and then at that point I'll know if I need to make that connection link and what length that needs to be. All right, so next up, I think I'm going to work on these NACA vents. You can see there's a cutout right there. There's a cutout right here. I think I'm going to do those next. It's best to put the pedals in first, because with these, with the duct work that goes on the inside here, that could potentially be in the way of getting the pedals in. So since the pedals are in, I think I'll go ahead and put my duct work in for these vents. I think I'll do that next. We'll see. All in due time. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. One more thing. Obviously, this is not in the stock location. The reservoir per plans is in this location, but on the opposite side of the firewall. And I believe that's the case only because most people will have dual brakes. So there'll be another complete set of pedals, master cylinders, and hoses on that side. And they put the brake reservoir on this side of the firewall, of course on the forward side of the firewall, but on this side as opposed to this side. So the plans show the brake reservoir here, another complete set of brakes here, and then these return hoses actually go through this bracket to the other side, and then everything gets teed into the reservoir. Since I don't have that, it made no sense to put it in that location and run these return lines all the way over there. So I just relocated it to where it is now. That just made more sense to me. Okay, talk to you later. And one more thing, super quick, so super quick, I'm not even going to turn my radio off to make this short video. I did, as I had mentioned before, I did put a little bit of grease in all the blocks. So there's a little bit of grease in that block. I put a little film of grease in this block, and of course on the Ascend block. Not necessarily required, but especially on the ends, I felt better doing it because I've got those metal washers in there. And I figured, what the heck, I got the end blocks grease, might as well put a little bit in this center one as well. So personal choice. All right, see you.